Hi, everyone. I'm Michelin Sisti, and you are watching the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it.
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Happy here with us, as always. I'm your host, Jake Deffinbaugh, bringing to you as always, our co-host, Chris Bixby, and Matt Bingel. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing good. Hello, peeps. How you doing? How you doing, Jakey?
That's great to hear. I'm doing great. As always, thank you for asking.
Fantastic.
And where are you all geographically, first of all?
We are all in the U.S. I'm in Massachusetts, and Jake and Matt are in different parts of Maryland.
Closer.
Yeah, we're actually like an hour and a half away from each other.
Actually, no, it's like an hour. It's closer than we thought it would be, but
Yeah.
we're pretty close. We're pretty close geographically.
Yes. Well,
Despite my Welsh accent and I'm British, I've been in LA for 33 years, and we're based in Los Angeles.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. So Jake, who do we have today?
Yes, today's guest we have for today. He's a Welsh, Emmy, and BAFTA award-winning producer. He wrote books for the SuperTed book series. He made his own TV company, which is now called Splash Entertainment, which is formerly called as Mike Young Productions. He also worked on some other, children's series, which we'll touch base on earlier. Please welcome Mr. Mike Young. How about over here, Mike? How about over here? How are you?
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes, a pleasure. A pleasure. So, for those who don't know you, could you tell our audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, Ryan Reynolds and myself are world famous in Wales. Okay. Yeah. So, I started in the UK, in Wales, and I wrote all these SuperTed books. I was a writer, but basically, I had a little boy, Richard, and he was afraid of the dark. He was 2.5 years old and would never go to sleep at night. And so every evening I used to go up and try and get him to sleep. And one night, in desperation, I went there, and I literally I'd been washing up the tea dishes. I had a tea towel in my hand, and I tied it around the teddy bear's neck. And I said, this teddy bear is also afraid of the dark, but when he whispers his secret magic word, he turns into SuperTed. And so night after night after night, I used to tell him these SuperTed stories. And one day I went to his kindergarten to collect him, and the teacher said, we love those SuperTed stories. I said, how do you know about those? Oh, we always stand Richard on the desk, and he always tells us a story you told him last night. This is, guys, how accidental life is. Okay. And so she said, you're a writer. Why didn't you get them published? And I did. They were very successful. And then the Welsh television channel named S4C, who had just been formed at that time, to preserve the Welsh language, which is separate to English language. And they wanted to do something that took their logo all around the world, because obviously 99.9% of what they were going to produce were in the Welsh language. And you're talking about 45 years ago, So basically it's not the same as today, where now on Netflix we see thousands of blooming foreign shows, don't we, with subtitles and all the rest of it. That it was unheard of at that time. So I taught myself where I was I knew film and film producing, but I'd never really produced animation. And so we talked our way into forming a studio in Wales called Serial Animation, brought in a couple of really experienced guys, Dave Edwards, who's director, Robin Lyons, the writer, Roger Ficklin. And we knew so little that we produced some really, really good. We copied Disney. We said, because in those days, as you guys know, it was very limited animation. Like the old He-Man Master of the Universe series, they were barely animated fundamentally, and so we didn't know any better, so we were actually fully animating it. And SuperTed became the first show ever bought by Disney from an outside company.
Oh, wow.
And so back in the 90s, they sold the embryonic Disney Channel and VHS tapes and all the rest of it. They were selling it. So yeah, and we also created another show called Fireman Sam. I met two London firemen who were firefighters, and they had nothing for the fire service and their families to buy, and so they come up with this idea of this fireman. And so we, but we because that was really like Postman Pat, if you know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
We wanted something, it had to be done in stop frame animation, not in 2D animation like SuperTed was. So it went to a company called Bumper Films, who did a great job with it back in the day. Of course, they still made today, and they're CGI now. And then just very quickly, we did a movie called Once Upon a Forest with Hanna-Barbera and Fox, again from Wales. We did The Little Engine That Could from Wales, and I decided back in those days we couldn't do what we're doing now on this call. You had to be here. And America, in some respects, is the most insular country on earth outside of North Korea. You know what I mean? It's, especially in this industry, animation, it was just the core center of the world at that time. And so we moved here and set up our own company and studio. And the very first show we ever made was Little Dracula. Have you ever heard of Little Dracula?
I don't think so.
Not really.
And Little Dracula... It was on Fox, on the Hub, actually, the channel called the Hub that was formed at the time. Yeah, and we went, we did The Secret Garden, we did The Little Engine That Could, I just mentioned, with Universal, and so we really started to kick ass, and the advantage I had over the local studios is that I knew the international market. Whereas in America, you would sell to NBC or ABC or CBS, and that was it.
Right.
And then what happened was that the studios were allowed to buy the networks. Again, preceding all you guys back in the 90s. It used to be like church and state. The studios could not own the networks. And then they changed the rules, the fencing rules, and they allowed... So Disney could buy ABC, blah, 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 and all. And so, of course, a lot of the big independent animation studios lost a lot of work at that time. Mm-hmm. It's like what we're going through now in a different era. But we survived because we knew how to co-produce with the BBC or TF1 in France or Kika in Germany or whatever. And so we got through that period through dumb luck by... basically knowing the international market,
Right.
Definitely. Very interesting indeed. Now, before launching your career producing these various projects, what was your background like, and how did you grow up?
I born and raised in Wales, and I'm Welsh. That's a Welsh soccer jersey hanging on the wall in that picture frame behind me. And so don't call me English, whatever you do. Okay. The Scots, the Irish, and the Welsh, the Celtic nations, you know what I mean? And so they very, people say, are you supporting England in the World Cup? And they say, no, I would support North Korea before England, But there you are. And so I was in, I basically went to a college. I came out. I became a dietitian, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
And basically went in that direction for a while. And then through, again, sheer dumb luck, this company that I was working for wanted to make commercials. And because I did most of the writing there, I found myself producing various, commercials fundamentally. So from commercials, and great thing about commercials is you do both, don't you? They mix media ones, especially back then, live action and animation mixed together, and so we started in that direction, and we got had 5 kids. We've now got 11 grandchildren, and they all live around here. 2 of the guys, Pete and Rich, work in the studio here, and Pete runs all development and all the new shows, which I'll tell you about later. And Rich is a director and also, was an editor, post-production. And so we're very much a family. Our daughter Sarah is second in command at Disney series television animation.
Oh, nice.
Like Spidey and Friends recently.
Oh, yeah.
But, you guys, you're a bit more focused on the nostalgia side of the fence, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
pretty much. Absolutely. Yeah.
Just an interesting thing, and you can check this out on IMDb. We produced in 2002, 2003, He-Man Master of the Universe, and it's the highest rating of all the various versions that were made. Even though the earlier ones, ours rates higher amongst the fan base, etc., etc. And then the 2 series they made with Netflix recently, a lot of the fans didn't like them at all. So with the fan base, like, imagine taking Woody Woodpecker and making it in CGI.
Right. Yeah.
You lose something, don't you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you do. Yes.
Yeah, and so they got to be very careful. We got a Sonic the Hedgehog 2D series on Cabellion, which I'll mention in a minute, and basically the fan base much prefers it to the CGI Cartoon Network version that they did.
Yeah.
And in fact, they write rude things about it. So they're all like you 3.
Yeah, IMDb is an interesting thing.
Yeah,
especially when it comes to like research. Like we've had guests in the past. Like we bring up something, they're like, "No, I didn't do that." So it's a hit or miss with IMDb. But that's interesting that that like people had their own audience for the '80s He-Man. But I'm definitely surprised that one's ranked higher. That surprises me. It really does.
Yeah, it did, and I think it's because the director and the producer on it were like He-Man besotted guys, and they knew they really stuck to the core of the story. Whereas in some of these later versions, they go off in all sorts of direct. I don't know if you've seen them. Have you?
I don't think so.
The later Netflix He-Man?
No, I haven't seen that.
Well, there you are, that says it all. Basically. Yeah. So, so basically, we family company. Then several years ago, we formed Cabellion. Comcast we were working with, and they encourage us, on the cable side of the fence, they were switching over to digital. So it allowed us to there's Woody there. It allowed us to, so we're the only one on both the cable and on on Apple and Amazon and Amazon Fire and what's it called, Roku, etc. There's the old Sonic I was talking about. There's the black and white Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Okay? Oh yeah.
My gosh.
And so it's a mixture of brand new stuff and stuff that's it's nostalgic, and we get so many adults watching it. In fact, we only keep the statistics from kids. We get about 25 million kids a month watching it, and they basically we have like a 75-minute watch time. Now on YouTube, a 2-minute watch time is a long time. Okay, so 75 minutes. It means they're dedicated viewers as such, and it's amazing, and it's free. It's AVOD. You get to watch a Lego commercial or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and kids like that anyway. It's not like us having to watch Liberty Mutual ads or drug ads or whatever. You know what I mean?
Ah, yes.
Uh,
Yeah, I see those too much.
and so Cabillion has grown from strength to strength, and you should check it out. If you do you have Roku or Amazon Fire or any of those
I
things?
have Roku, yeah.
I have an Amazon
No,
Fire,
I don't.
so
Yeah, well, just go into either one, put in the search, put Cabillion in, and you'll see it'll come up. And it's, as I say, it's free. That's the other thing is young families, can they afford 6 or 7 SVOD channels?
right.
Right, yeah.
It's a
It
lot.
adds up.
It
The
just
money
adds
adds
up,
up.
Yeah.
especially when you're not watching them half the time.
Right? So absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh,
So any questions?
so one of your earliest projects you mentioned earlier was Super Ted. Now
Yeah.
you mentioned the inspiration behind it, but what was the creation process of Super Ted like?
Well, as I say, I brought in a guy called Dave Edwards, who was a really great director, and Robin Lyons, who's a really good writer, script writer, and we formed the studio, Serial Animation, and we went into the very roughest part of Cardiff. It was called Tiger Bay, okay, and it was in not a place of faint hearts. And we unwittingly became the catalyst to really completely rejuvenate Tiger Bay, which is now called Cardiff Bay, and basically we attracted lots of it became a honeypot, post production studios and other studios, and so we started off there, and Super Ted was made literally the old fashioned way. In other words, you drew animation on paper, you transferred it to cell, you painted the cells, you put the cells under a 35 millimeter rostrum camera and shot them cell by cell by cell, married with backgrounds, which again were all hand painted. Literally everything was done within the studio. Now, these days, of course, you subcontract to other countries, especially on TV animation, India and Malaysia and Ireland, and you name it. It really is an international business now. But
Yeah.
then, literally made everything in house. Literally every drawing, every cell, and those cells sell for quite a lot of money when people can get hold of them.
Right, yeah. So now you also mentioned the Super Ted animated series. How did the books kind of transition into the series?
Well, I think the first maybe dozen books I wrote with like the Inca, Super Ted, the Inca temples, Super Ted and the stolen rocket ships, Super Ted, nuts in space, and so these were. Do you remember like the Mister Men books?
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, uh-huh.
they were that sort of format. They were about 20 pages, 24 pages, small illustration. And the original, very original illustration were really amateurish when you look at them now. We basically were busking it, as we say in England, and basically then when Dave Edwards came along, he started to make the characters a lot more slick and animatable. And so gradually the books got republished with the later sort of drawings. Yeah, and so the first series were basically all, it says 40th anniversary, were all based on the original books that we actually made. It's so funny. Our daughter, I don't know if you've ever seen Grown Up Creepy, by the way. Our daughter, as I said, is head of animation at Disney Series Television, and she produced Spidey and Friends, and we say to our two grandsons, who were like 6 or 7 years old at the time, right, we're going to watch Auntie Sarah's Spidey and Friends. So we watch the episode, and then they say, can we watch another one now? And we said, no, that's going to be next Friday. That was beyond their comprehension because they'd grown up in this. You guys, even though you're young guys, but you grew up in an era where you'd wait a week for a show.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and all that's gone now. And really, it's lost something. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Yeah, like you would have all probably watched the Ninja Turtles together or whatever it was. You know what I mean? And you go to school and you're playing Ninja Turtles, and there were 3 or 4 networks, and so half the kids would have watched it at the same time on the same day on a Saturday morning. You know, now, of course, it's very, very different. The audience is very much more diverse and split up. You know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so basically, the whole world has changed, and the shame is that the binge watching doesn't allow the characters to build. If you look at the big merchandising successes, okay, now these days, they're all linear television characters. You know, it's Bluey or Peppa Pig or Paw Patrol or PJ Masks, or you go on and on and on. They weren't originally, at least, on the SVODs.
Right.
They were build, like Spidey and Friends again, build over a period of time. And it's something they got to get to grips with because, the binge is not conducive to really building a brand over time,
Right.
fundamentally.
Right. Definitely.
Absolutely. So now, going back to SuperTed, SuperTed was also turned into a stage show. Now, can you talk a bit about that?
You've done your homework. So my cousin was a very famous British actor named Victor Spinetti, and Victor Spinetti was in all the Beatles movies, for instance, Hard Day's Night and Help and Magical Mystery Tour.
Oh,
And
wow.
I went out with the Beatles a few times with him, and had great time with them. And so when SuperTed came along, I turned to him and said, "Look, we need to cast this." And so he brought in 4 or 5 of the best actors and voice actors in Britain. Years ago, Doctor Who was John Pertwee. So if you look at the classic Doctor Who's, he was John Pertwee, Melvin Hayes, Roy Kinnear. And so a cast to die for, Derek Griffiths as SuperTed. And so he helped us cast it, and we used to have great fun, recording the shows up in London. And those, at the time, I didn't really realize it. The voices really became iconic with SuperTed, and they helped. As I said, Disney. It was the first show ever bought by Disney from an outside company. SuperTed and Lucky Luke, a French company, had a show as well. So it's between the quality of it and the casting of it, we struck gold fundamentally. And SuperTed teddy bears used to have a zip up, so it looked like a regular teddy bear, and the fur would come off, and underneath would be SuperTed. So children could use their imagination and play with them, and and the SuperTed bears, also. If you look on eBay again, they sell for hundreds of dollars. Some of the original bears, What was the other thing that you said in regard to SuperTed? So when you ask your question,
The SuperTed stage show.
Oh, the SuperTed stage show, yeah. So Victor is an actor, and so we're talking to him one day, and we said, "Look, again, these days it's very common for Paw Patrol to be a stage show or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But now, in those days, again, so we had to. How do we have him flying in the theatre? So we booked in Britain they have what they call pantomime, which are like Christmas shows that run for about 2 months, right up to Christmas time. And so we started in that way. We started in the New Theatre in Cardiff, and people are grown-ups now. 50 years old, will fondly remember him. And of course, you go to the theatre, and we got all these real actors: John Pertwee, Victor Spinetti, Melvin Hayes. They all played their voice characters. Actually, became the costume characters. I would have sent you some photographs of the main costume. And then SuperTed was a young guy who was really athletic and could do all sorts of karate-like moves and very fit. And he would be on a harness and he'd fly around the theater. So he'd fly up to the boxes and the circle and fly over the crowd. And kids used to go absolutely wild for it, basically. And then it became a touring show.
Yeah.
We toured up and down the country with it, for 2 or 3 years, actually. Yeah, so, again, those are the days.
Definitely. And I know you also mentioned after SuperTed, SuperTed was followed by series such as Fantastic Max and Little Dracula. Can you kind of talk a bit about those shows?
Yeah, so Fantastic Max, which was originally called Space Baby, and you can see an episode of the one episode of pilot we made of Space Baby on YouTube. Again, it was much higher quality than the Hanna-Barbera version that followed. So we, at that time, to get ABC or Fox to order the show, they would never order it from a studio in Wales. Okay. And so we decided to co-produce it with Hanna-Barbera. Now, they're great friends to this day, all the people who work there. Mark Young was a namesake of mine, and Kelly Ward, and they were great, talented people, but the studio had become a factory. Mm-hmm. And it was churning out hundreds of hours of animation a year. So we were in that system. It was the writing on the show was fantastic. They changed the name to Fantastic Max, but the quality of the animation wasn't up to the SuperTed sort of standard, or even Space Baby standard, if you see it. But it ran in syndication, a couple of seasons of it, and then another thing we developed was Once Upon a Forest, which became a feature film. David Kirshner was best known as the creator of Chucky, the slasher doll.
Yeah.
Had been made head of Hanna-Barbera at that time, the young guy. And so he liked Once Upon a Forest, which was just about the first of the environmental shows. And when you look back on it and the environmental message in it, from 37 years ago, it was really so relevant to what we're all living through today now, basically. And yeah, so Once Upon a Forest. And then Little Dracula was one of the very first Mike Young production shows. And we have some great names in it. And we also did, I mentioned The Secret Garden, where Sir Derek Jacobi was in it, brought in some British big voice guy, big name actors, etc. But we still produce, and to this day, we produced All I Want for Christmas Is You with Mariah Carey a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
which cleaned up. It's been incredibly successful. Have you seen Kalapari on Netflix? Right. Well, Kalapari is like a flashback series you might like. It's boys' action, an army of frogs who have been taken over by these, mutant type characters, and it's a couple of seasons. It's on Hulu, and it's on Netflix, unusually. And there's a movie, a CGI version of Kalapari in the works now with Hulu, basically. But check it out, Kalapari with a K.
Nice.
Currently as well, we're working with R.L. Stein on Little Shop of Monsters as a long form film, and we're all held up a little bit with the strikes that the SAG strike and the strike at the moment. We have another project called Just Being Audrey. It's about Audrey Hepburn when she was a 13-year-old in World War II, and it's incredible animation script, incredible. And Res Defenders, which is with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and it's about 6 Native American Indian kids who are all computer whiz and AI whiz kids, young kids. And it's a funny comedy. Out in space, the Slimies and Lord Slime is going to come and take over planet Earth. And he's a bit of he's like Donald Trump. He's got a bone spur problem himself. So he's not going to come to Earth himself because it's a little bit dangerous. So he sends his elite force. He thinks they're elite, but they what we would call teenagers. Okay, so he sends these Slimies down to Earth, and they meet up with these Native American Indian kids, and of course they start to have the time of their lives, partying and etc. And now they got to pretend they've taken over planet Earth. So with these Native American Indian kids, they basically use video games and all their AI footage, and they're constantly sending him these horrible war videos back into space saying, look, it's dangerous here, don't come, we're fighting like hell. And they got to keep Lord Skid back in space, so
right.
Interesting stuff.
Definitely. So one of your other most well-known projects you worked on was co-executive producing Clifford the Big Red Dog. What was it like working on that show?
Well, it's a classic, and we did all the, through the early 2000s right up. We did 150 episodes of Clifford the Big Red Dog and Clifford's Puppy Days, and then we followed Clifford's Really Big Movie, which was a movie we did with Warner Brothers of Clifford in again 2D animation, and it was just a pleasure. The writing on the show with PBS and Scholastic was fantastic. It's just one of those. Every parent in America knows Clifford the Big Red Dog now, and the kids do. I know they made some live action features, and they've done some Flash sort of animated series, but we did traditional 2D full on animation, and as I say, it was an absolute pleasure. We worked on Care Bears and Strawberry Shortcake, produced both those shows. They were both CGI shows. Woody Woodpecker, we just completed 3 seasons of shorts of Woody Woodpecker. What a pleasure that was.
Nice.
Mike Milo directed it. He was a great 2D director, and we for Universal Studios, it's had 1 billion views.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
All over the world. Yeah, like in Brazil is one of the biggest characters of all time, Woody Woodpecker. Okay, and that's the thing, is that these things really do have legs and travel. Going back to Kalapari, we've dubbed it into 32 languages.
Wow.
So, Netflix. So that's how the world has changed.
Nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now in that series, Clifford was voiced by the sadly passed John Ritter. Did you get to know or work with John at all during?
Oh my God! Yes, we worked with him extensively. Here's the really sad story: is that we recorded the movie, Clifford's Really Big Movie.
Yeah.
And so John passed away at the end of, after he finished recording it, but we needed a few pickup lines to be done, and we had to get someone to do a pickup line or 2. So when we went to Warner Brothers to watch the premiere of the movie on one of their big stages there, the audience was half adult and half children. People, the executives at Warner Brothers, they all brought their children in, and we did as well. And so at the very end of the movie, John Ritter says, "I love you all."
Uh,
And all the adults in the room started crying their eyes out, emotion. And all the kids were looking at their parents and as adults, seeing us all crying, and they were saying, "It's not that bad. He'll be," it went completely over their head. You know what I mean? So basically, it was such a sad, poignant thing, but at the same time, children. Yeah, John Ritter was, and we had a great cast, actors. The other show is Jacob's The Adventures of Piggley Winks.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with that one too.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a wonderful show.
Now, Jacob's, we had Mel Brooks, for God's sake, in Jacob's, like an icon himself, and Tara Strong, and the Miley Flanagan was Jacob's, and Mel Brooks used to show up at the recording and he'd say, "I got to be out of here 3 o'clock. I got to be out of here 3 o'clock." At 5 o'clock, he'd say, "No, let's go back to page 6. I think I've thought of something." And whatever he thought of was genius. You know what I mean? Funny and genius. And he plays a Brooklyn sheep who's been sent to Ireland, okay? And he's seen the whole world, and he's amongst all these dumb cluck sheep who've never been anywhere. And oh my God, it's just incredible. It won the British Academy Award. It won 8 Emmys, I believe. To this, and it's a CGI dates. If you look at CGI made 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, unlike 2D, it dates. Okay, yeah. But Jacobs really holds up there because of the sort of characters they were, etc. And the other thing about CGI, if you've noticed, you could put half the characters from one movie into another movie. You wouldn't know the difference, would you? They tend to look the same. I think Spider-Verse has been a godsend, Spider-Man animated movies, because they went back to the cartoonists, and the cartoon guys designed them, and it broke away from that CGI samey look, but there you are. That's my view anyway.
Nice.
Awesome. So now, do you have any favorite Jacobs characters or episodes?
Oh my God, that's because I did a little live action presentation of them not long ago, and with some children, etc., new modern day kids, and it was just running through everything. No, I think all of them were gems. The writing in them was fantastic, and Grandpa Piggley is really me. I'm really, my grandchildren basically, they sit around me and I tell them stories, and that's what Grandpa Piggley did. Okay, and so he always talked about the old country, going back to Ireland. Now, this summer in June, I took 5 of my youngest grandchildren, were like 7 to 12 years of age, across the range, to Wales, for them to visit Wales for the first time ever, because they thought like Wales was like a figment of my overworked imagination, if you know what I mean. And we went to Wales, and they saw everything from the castles right through to the farms, and the farm where we grew up, and all the rest of it. And there's nothing like it. And that's what we poured into Jacobs. That was the same, basically, background that we put into it. And so, yeah, I'm afraid to say it, all of them are my favorites. And working with Brooks was like a dream come true, basically.
Nice.
Wonderful. That's
nice.
Wonderful. So you also actually co-created the animated series Chloe's Closet, which of course is one that I remember from Sprout as well. What was that show like?
Well, my granddaughter is Chloe, okay, and she's in NYU.
Oh, wow.
She's now in the New York Film School as we speak, and
wow.
she used to have a little like comforter blanket when she was little, a 3 or 4 year old, and it had carrot stitches around it, and it was in the shape of a duck. And so Chloe's Closet has 100% come from Chloe, and Sarah, her mom, is the one who was at Disney now, and basically Chloe's Closet is not sold in North Korea, but it's sold just about everywhere else in the world you could think of. Fundamentally, it's in many, many, many languages. It's one of the iconic preschool shows. It's up there. I'm jealous of Bluey. I think Bluey is one of the best shows ever made.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. I love Bluey.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. But Chloe's Closet knocks on its door a little bit, and the great thing is it's sheer imagination. They never leave their bedroom. They open the closet, it's a magic thing, and they go in. They're astronauts, or they're doctors, or they're
yeah,
ski slopes, etc., etc. And again, the wonderful I could switch on now. The wonderful thing about 2D again is that it doesn't date. You can go watch the Lion King 2D movie now, and it looks phenomenal.
Okay? Oh yeah.
All right.
Even like the really old stuff, like Snow White.
Yeah.
Dumbo.
You go back and you watch some of the CGI from 20 years ago. We made a show which I'm not very proud of called But Ugly Martians.
Oh yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. Yeah,
I've heard a little bit about it.
I haven't seen any episodes, but I've seen like articles about it and stuff.
Yeah.
So But Ugly Martians is one of the very first CGI shows ever made. We made it all in LA, by the way. It didn't go anywhere else. And it's great voices in it. Jess Harnell and Chris Paulson, and really great voices in it. But the animation makes you want to die. When you see it, really, really, really. But even if you look at, go on.
I mean that's one of the first shows like with that technology. So I mean, yeah. It doesn't surprise it wasn't really best show.
We did Voltron as well, a Voltron series back then in CGI, and again, they've very ugly sort of designs and looking characters, etc. Sometimes look in animation. We made a movie called Norm of the North and Rock Dog. Okay.
Oh yeah, Norm of the North.
Okay, now these are $8 million movies, not $150 million movies. Okay. Now, if you guys made an $8 million live action film, you would never get compared with a $200 million live action film. But in animation, you get compared. You get people say, "Well, the animation is not as good as Pixar." You go, "No, it's not as good as Pixar." Okay, this was made. Okay, now the fact is, the kids absolutely loved it. Okay, whereas some of the bigger movies, and especially some of the more recent bigger movies, our kids were bored to tears with them or didn't want to even go and see them. Fundamentally, we got a soccer-based movie on Netflix called Soccer Crossed Out Football Stars, and it's got Zlatan, who's a famous soccer player, Megan Rapinoe, who's the World Cup lady, and also Weird Al Yankovic in it. It's on Netflix, and it's one of the most successful. It cost $6 million to make. Now, I coach kids soccer, okay, and we were all sitting on the grass a few months ago in the heat in LA, drinking water because we're all dying. There were about 30 kids there. And I said, hands up if you know who Brad Pitt is. No, never heard of him. Paul McCartney, no. Kim Kardashian, no. They went through all these names. And you say, who's Charlie D'Amelio?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, and they were like 9 to 12 years old, 12-year-olds. What's famous to kids is not what's famous even to you guys. You're different demographic. What's famous to you is different to what's famous to a 7-year-old today, and certainly parents and grandparents. And so sometimes Netflix and some of these people, they make shows with stars in them that don't mean dick to the kid of today. Mm-hmm. And that's something you've got to do. You've got to cast things up and down, like Weird Al Yankovic. Do you know who Weird Al Yankovic is?
Oh,
Oh
of
yeah,
course. Yeah, I love
absolutely,
Weird Al.
Absolutely. Yes,
absolutely.
Well,
Weird Al is wonderful.
little kids
He's
don't know
awesome.
who he is, but we
Right.
put Weird
Yeah.
Al's in it for their parents and their grandparents. Okay. Whereas, you know, Megan Rapinoe, even though she missed the penalty in the World Cup, okay, they all the kids knew who she was. You know what I mean? So basically, that casting is always very important. You know, cast somebody that the kids know.
Right. So
Mhm.
another show that you produced, which is another show that aired on Sprout, Dive Ollie Dive. Can you talk a little bit about that show?
Dive Alley Dive, by the way, has had now 7 full feature films made of it, which be all been released in China theatrically,
Hmm.
and Universal
Oh,
has 3 of them in the USA. Yeah, Dive Ollie Dive again, a fairly early but cute CGI series. 2 guys from Liverpool contacted me, and they're nothing to do with the business, and they said they had this idea, and of course we get zillions of calls and approaches like this, and so but then when they pitched me the concept of a little submarine, again, it's got environmental things in it, etc. I really liked it, and then we picked up and designed it, and they've made quite a bit of money out of it now. And we fundamentally produced 104 11-minute episodes, and then the Chinese partner wanted to do a movie, so we co-produced a movie with them. Then they wanted another movie and another movie. And in China, these have been massive. These, by the way, cost $4 million each, these movies. Okay. And they've beaten $100 million of movies, in that territory. It's called Happy Little Submarines, by the way, in Chinese. Dive Ollie Dive. And when we got to number 7, we didn't want to do it because we were too full up with it, and Universal bought 3, and we were still selling them, if you know what I mean. And so we stopped it at that point. And China since then has gone backwards, and they politically and all the rest of it. So it's harder now to get things made through China.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, it's after the 7th one. Like, what's left? Like.
Right.
You hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
well, it's like some of your most favorite drama series on television. Once they get to the 2nd season or the 3rd season, they start to get a bit thin, don't they?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And you
Yes,
see
they
that
do.
adult stuff, so thing. So it's same happened. Clifford was an exception because Clifford seemed to. We're working at the moment with Al Roker, the
Oh,
weather
wow.
account for with PBS.
Wow.
There's a show called Weather Hunters, and Al Roker is has a family in it, African American family, and they again, it's all about weather and climate, and and trying to really show kids and treat kids, because we're bequeathing to you guys a real problem. Okay, what's happened in Maui and what's happened in all over the world is going to become more and more and more commonplace as climate changes. And so this series deals a little bit with that, but in a way that's accessible for children, and also really showing them how they can, in their individual ways, can actually make changes. That's the great thing about PBS. They will do stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, PBS has done a lot of wonderful, wonderful shows over the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
More recently,
Absolutely.
especially, a lot of really, really wonderful
Oh my
shows.
gosh.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of them. I can't even figure out ones off the top of my head. I don't know how far we want to go back.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
no, to be fair, they have, and if the writing process with them is tricky because they're very pedantic at times, but in the end, they're right, and the stuff has quality and it lasts, and you can go back and watch stuff from 20 years ago and it'll still stand out, like Clifford.
Absolutely.
Right.
absolutely still stands now. So aside from producing and creating TV series, you also worked on a number of films and specials, including the Bratz specials and TV show from.
I'm never going to forgive you for mentioning that now.
Oh,
Yeah, the Bratz, a massive toy line with MGA, and we again, CGI dates, and so you watch it a little bit, and you cringe a little bit of it, but it runs on Cabillion, and my God, we get really good views and audiences for it. It's a bit like our teenage granddaughters who love shows like live action shows. I'm trying to think of Mean Girls. They
Oh
can
yeah.
they can actually quote lines from Mean Girls. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's a bit the same with Bratz. Is that even though the animation has dated a little bit in CGI terms, it's very sparky and spiky and all the rest of it. It was like the antidote to Barbie, wasn't it? At the time.
mm-hmm.
They've tried to change that in this recent movie, but basically, Barbie was pink and everything, whereas the Bratz were edgy. And there were lawsuits between the two toy companies and God knows what else. So basically, yeah, we again great voice casts in them, and some people who've gone on to become quite famous. We did Sabrina the Teenage Witch as an animated series, and they again it runs on Cabillion, and again gets great views. Again, it's like Pokemon is not the greatest animation in the world, but kids absolutely love it. Probably like you three do, and so sometimes it's not the quality of the animation, it's other things kids like and look for. And sometimes the big studio executives don't really understand that fundamentally. Why would a $6 million soccer film beat $150 million animated movies in ratings? Because the kids identified with the content on it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Definitely.
actually, Tisdale was in it. She was the voice of Sabrina, and again, you cast it in a way that pulls the kids in fundamentally.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I know earlier you mentioned producing the Norm of the North film series. What was it like working on those movies?
Well, again, you're making an $8 million movie on the first Norm of the North. It was with Lionsgate, with the domestic distributor of the show. We created the show, and had a fantastic voice cast in it, and it really punched well above its weight. I think it took $56 million the box office, and it did sold everywhere in the world you could think of. And again, polar bear who goes to New York City and gets into all sorts of trouble with Ken Jeong in it, who we ran into the other day, is funny as hell. And he and basically, again, children, they look at things very differently from adults. Like the latest Pixar movie, which looks absolutely fantastic, but two of my grandchildren didn't even ask to go to see it. So have you seen it all?
The new Pixar movie? No, not yet, but I'm planning to see it on Disney Plus soon.
He waits till it's on Disney Plus. There you are. What a cheapskate he is. There you
Me
are.
too. Me too. Yeah. I also have Disney Plus too. So you can say the same thing to me too.
It's our equivalent of waiting for a movie to come out on like VHS or DVD or something.
Yeah.
Exactly right. We just moved studio, and after 16 years at the old place, and basically the amount of stuff we had to get, all those DVDs and all those things that you don't have anymore, even digibeta tapes, and we just had to crush thousands and thousands of them, basically. Yeah. It was interesting with Mariah Carey. here we got, a superstar who, and she'd never done animation as such before, and we had to go to her house to record it, and et cetera, et cetera. And believe it or not, that song had never been released as a single until we made that film. It was on an album, All I Want for
Oh,
Christmas.
wow.
And it went to #1 all around the world, as a single, and again, relatively inexpensive show, and again, in development terms, we're working with some famous people. I mentioned Ryan Reynolds, and they've just taken up the rights in Biker Mice from Mars. And Biker Mice from Mars was something we did the Bible of it for the guy who created the show, but we didn't actually produce the show. But now they want to reproduce it. So, all these things come around and come back, and you have a different audience each time, So Chloe's Closet, and it's like 15th year, and so you've got 6 demographics basically, because they're all 2 to 6-year-olds, and then they move on. And so one of the issues we have with the financier at the moment is they need finance 3 live action movies which bombed, okay, and we say no, animated TV series are not like that. You don't have that one weekend and the thing is gone because no one wanted to see it. Animated series sell all over the world and can really, really have long life. Woody is 70 years old, the character. All right?
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. That's right.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So, to anyone watching or listening, what would you like to say to those who supported your work throughout your career?
You're like Donald Trump supporters. You are really mugs. No, no, I don't mean that at all. Basically, thank you so much, because we're an independent studio. We have to compete with the Disneys and the Warner Brothers and the very big guys, both with our Kabillion network and with the shows that we produce. Probably the whole industry is at this moment in time going through a very, very difficult time between the strikes and the fact that the SVODs have pulled their wings in tremendously. And what I hope is that they learn that they can come to us, hire us, and fire us. They don't have to keep us around all the time. Whereas when they have their internal animation production units, the costs go through the roof. Literally go through the roof. So I'm on behalf of the independent animation industry, I make that statement and plea, and really hope that the independents remain strong and get through this tricky period between COVID and everything else, so we'll see.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, if people would like to connect with you, where can people find you?
Well, go to our www.splashentertainment.com. But also, please check out www.kabillion.com. I think you'd find it very interesting. And if you live in America, it's on cable, it's on Amazon Fire, it's on Apple, and it's on Roku. And, we're an independent, again, battling against some bigger guys, but we run through their legs occasionally. All right.
Nice.
Thank you, guys. It was a fabulous interview, and we look forward to seeing it. And
Nice.
we'll feed it into my social media sites when you send it to me. Okay.
Definitely. And to wrap this up, so of course this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or how would you define the word nostalgia?
I think nostalgia is something that from your youth you really hang on to for the rest of your life, and it gave you pleasure to think back to it. Okay, I think that's the best summary I could give.
Definitely.
Oh,
Great.
absolutely. Thank you. Great words to end off. Thank you.
Yes. Well, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was fun.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much. For what you've done
Bye,
with
guys.
our lives. For what you've done, especially for Clifford and Jakers and Dive and all those things. We grew up watching those, and and the fact we're getting to share with you, it's a pleasure. So thank you very much, and cannot wait for what's next for you and the future of your company as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Fingers crossed,
absolutely.
indeed.
Enjoy the rest of your day, Mike.
All right. Take care,
Bye.
Mike. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Says leave.
There you go. And it's
There it
goodbye
is.
from us as well.
Yes, I feel bad. I'll never be forgiven for that Bratz question, though.
And we absolutely enjoyed chatting with Mike Young. Oh,
Yes.
Yes, he was a delight. He really was.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews, everyone. And as always, take us home, Jake.
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. See ya.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.